Alone in the wild. 7 shocking secrets mountain men used to build cabins at midnight. The news spread like wildfire through the Smoky Mountain trails, a story so wild it left the toughest of outdoorsmen shaking. What secrets did these mountain men conceal, lurking beneath the shadows of their trees? It was said that under the veil of darkness, with only the moon as their witness, these rugged souls would construct cabins of unimaginable speed and strength. They carve out shelter as if the very ground itself obeyed their command. But how? The very idea sent chills down the spine, raising questions like specters in the night. What magic or madness fueled their fevered hands? The first clue came from whispers floating through the nearby town, strange sounds in the dead of night. Some claimed it was the sound of timber groaning under weight that wasn't there, as if the forest itself were giving life to long-dead trees. Others spoke of flickering lanterns glowing against the dark, shimmering like ghostly hands guiding the men as they worked. How could they see in such thick darkness? What tormented spirits lurked in the shadows, watching their every move, perhaps even aiding their endeavors? Tension hung in the air, thick like a fog, as locals dared one another to venture into the woods after sunset. The woods were alive with foreboding tales of beasts and echoes that didn't belong. What if someone stumbled upon one of these midnight constructions? What hidden dangers might they unearth? The chilling thought made hearts race, fingers twitching, breaths quickening. The night held more than just darkness. It held secrets that pulsed with a life of their own. But just then, a voice broke through, as if casting a spell to capture audience attention. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Now the question loomed like a dark cloud overhead. What had those mountain men seen as they labored under the stars? The air crackled with anticipation, and just when they thought they had it figured out, a rustle echoed in the distance, sharp and sudden. A figure emerged from the dark, silhouetted against the pale glow of the moon. Who was it? Friend or foe? The mystery only thickened, drawing everyone closer to the edge of their seats. Eager for what secrets might spill from the shadows, the figure stepped closer, the moonlight revealing more of its outline, and hearts pounded in the stunned silence. A chill swept through the crowd, almost palpable, as whispers flickered like candle flames. Is that a man? Someone dared to ask, their voice barely above a whisper, laced with disbelief as the silhouette moved into the clearing. Gasps escaped lips. This was no ordinary mountain man. His clothes were tattered, as if stitched from the very shadows of the woods. His skin, pale against the backdrop of the night, appeared almost luminescent, giving him a ghostly air. The townsfolk recoiled, instinctively taking a step back as he paused before them, wild eyes scanning their faces. "What do you want?" barked an old hunter, his voice booming, betraying a mix of fear and bravado. The stranger chuckled softly, a sound that sent shivers up their spines. "They've never told you the truth, have they?" he said, his voice low and husky, slicing through the tension. "You think you know what happens in these woods. You think it's just men laboring at midnight. But it's so much more." The way he spoke sent a tremor through the crowd. What truth? What more could there be? Unease bloomed in the atmosphere, and the tension thickened. "What are you talking about?" a woman cried out, stepping forward. "What truth?" "The spirits," the man said, gesturing towards the trees, their silhouettes looming ominously against the night sky. "They guide us. They protect us. We do their bidding out here, you see. The cabins, they're not built just for shelter. They are offerings to the ancient ones." Gasps filled the air again, drowning out the night sounds. A vibration of disbelief washed over the group, but the wild look in his eyes dared them to dismiss his words. Believe me or not, he continued, his tone growing dark, the woods are alive. They remember, they hunger, and they want to abide those who trespass against their will. The crowd buzzed with shock and confusion. Who was this man? A curse or a prophet? As murmurs flared, he took a step back, his form blending once more into the shadows. Suddenly, a cacophony of howls echoed from deeper within the woods, sending panic racing through everyone. The hunter pulled out his knife, hands steady, though his face blanched in fear. We need to go, now. But as they turned to flee, a brilliant flash illuminated the forest, a glowing orb soaring high and spinning in an ethereal dance. The stranger had vanished, swallowed by the night as wild, invigorating laughter echoed from the depths of the trees. Did you see that? Someone exclaimed, their voice trembling. What was that? Who was he? Just a man. Just a crazy man. Another shouted, but doubt hung in the air like a heavy fog. In their desperation to escape, the group stumbled back, quickening their pace even as their eyes flicked nervously to the trees. The truth had been hinted, but they'd barely scratched the surface. What darker secrets lay in wait, woven into the very roots of the land? They had stumbled into something they barely understood, and the forest seemed to shift, almost breathing with anticipation as the last of the crowd finally broke free from the thick underbrush. A chilling thought hit one of them. What if they weren't alone? What if the wild was indeed watching, waiting for its chance to strike? The night had only just begun, and the moon bore witness, its glow a harbinger of the chaos to come. What awaited them on the other side of the woods? Would they dare to return, or had they opened a door that would change everything? The answers were buried deep, waiting to be unearthed. The dirt path felt endless, each step pulling them further away from the shadows that danced behind them. Hearts raced, blood thumped in ears, but the eerie sense of being hunted hung thick in the air. As they burst from the trees and into the moonlit clearing, the tightly knit group found themselves breathless, staring back at the dark embrace of the woods. Did you hear that? A young woman named Clara gasped, her eyes wide with fear. The others nodded, straining their ears against the wind, each breath drawing in the haunting sounds of the night. All they could hear was the rustle of leaves, like whispers teasing them from behind the treeline. Probably just the wind, grumbled Hank, his bravado failing to mask the tremor in his voice. I'm not afraid of an old ghost story. But his eyes betrayed him, shifting nervously as they scanned the darkness. Did you see his eyes? Clara pressed, remembering those wild, haunting orbs that seemed to crave acknowledgement. He was different. That wasn't he just crazy talk. A murmur of agreement rippled among the group. They exchanged worried glances, trying to ward off the creeping dread that crawled into their minds. It felt as if the woods had come alive, vibrating with an energy they couldn't quite comprehend. Before they could catch their breath, a low growl erupted from the depths of the forest, echoing through the clearing. The sound was primal, filled with an unmistakable hunger that made skin prickle. What was that? Someone, a burly man named Tom, whispered, voice shaking. The laughter they had earlier heard was now replaced by something darker. Something was watching them, tracking their every movement. A sudden branch snapped, the sound piercing the stillness like a gunshot, sending them into motion. They turned as one, running for the nearby cabin that now stood like a beacon against the encroaching darkness. It was a lonely structure, shuddering under the weight of secrets, and they could only hope it would offer them sanctuary. Inside, the atmosphere felt heavy, the air thick with the musty scent of damp wood. As they bolted the door behind them, panic washed over Clara. What if he was right? She gasped. What if we angered something? That's ridiculous. Hank snapped, though there was a faint tremor in his tone, the memory of the man's eyes lingering in the corners of his mind. He's just some lunatic. Let us lock the doors and wait it out. But the others weren't convinced. The cabin creaked, a deep groan emanating from within its very bones, as though it, too, were alive. Shadows danced on the walls, caught between flickering candlelight and the moon's gaze. The feeling of being watched intensified, and the group huddled together near the fireplace, seeking warmth in each other's presence. Suddenly, a soft scratching sound came from outside, barely audible at first but growing more insistent. The laughter from earlier echoed faintly, twisting into something sinister. Clara held her breath, feeling the presence of fear like a weight in her chest. What's out there? Tom edged his way to the window, heart pounding in his throat. He peered outside, only to see nothing but the oppressive darkness waiting just beyond. But it felt alive, a sentient force beyond comprehension. Get away from there, Clara hissed, her chest tight as images of glowing eyes emerged in her mind. Then, just as they thought they could breathe easier, the door rattled violently, shaking the frame, forcing panic back into their hearts. What was that? Someone whimpered. They were not alone as the wood creaked under unseen pressure. The group spun toward the door, half resigned, half terrified. They knew they had to make a choice to face whatever shadows loomed outside or succumb to the growing darkness within the cabin. But the truth of the forest, buried deep in its roots, awaited. What awaited them beyond that threshold could shatter their very souls. Would they stand together to confront what lay outside, or would fear tear them apart? The answer was lurking just beyond the door. The door slammed against the frame with a bone-rattling thud. The shadows deepened, pressing closer, whispering promises of terror as Clara and her friends huddled in a desperate circle by the fireplace. Every groan of the cabin echoed like a sinister chuckle, reminding them of how isolated they truly were. Tom's eyes darted to the windows, wide and wild. "We should look outside," he insisted, voice trembling. His bravado crumbled as the scratching grew louder, like claws raking at the very soul of the wooden structure. "What if it's just an animal? A bear?" Hank scoffed, trying to reclaim a semblance of control. "We can scare it away. We can't just sit here." "No," Clara shrieked, a desperate edge cracking through her voice. "It's not just an animal. It's something else." The memory of that man's eyes clawed at her. Whatever they disturbed in the woods was not simply wild. The scratching transitioned to a series of thuds, as if something large was throwing itself against the door. Part of Clara wanted to scream, to run. Another part yearned for calmness to settle over them. She felt the need to take charge, to fight back against fear. "We need something to defend ourselves," she exclaimed. "Like what? A fire poker?" Hank shot back, cringing at the thought. Clara turned to the fireplace where the logs lay stacked, seemingly innocent but now infused with terror. She grabbed a thick stick, splintered and rugged. "Fine. If it comes in, I will not let it take us." The flickering candles cast erratic shadows, dancing wildly across the walls. Each pop from the fire made Clara jump, her heart thundering with every creak that resonated through the timbers of the cabin. She wished they could just be back home, curled up in safety without a worry in the world. Suddenly, an even louder crash reverberated through the cabin, forcing them all to jump up. The door buckled under another bone-jarring blow. Clara's resolve quivered. Her grip on the stick tightened. "What do we do?" she whispered. Tom rushed to the door, hands shaking. "We can't just let it in." Watching his hands, Clara noticed they weren't just shaking, they trembled with a pent-up fear, a realization that this was life or death. "Please, everyone, stay together." Clara's voice rang out, a plea that echoed the very essence of human survival. They could not let division breed panic. The door shook again, this time accompanied by a low, gravel-like growl that sent chills racing down Clara's spine. It was close, too close. "What is it?" Tom managed to choke out, heart racing faster than ever. Then, as if in answer, a shadow leapt into view through the window, a massive shape wrapped in blackness. Clara gasped, drawing back instinctively. It lurked just beyond the glass, its form twisting in the candlelight. The eyes glimmered like embers, feral and filled with an insatiable hunger. As terror clawed at her throat, Clara turned to the group, panic swelling. "We need to leave. There's no safety here." But as she spoke, a noise erupted from the darkness outside, a cacophony of voices, warped and distorted, flooding into their minds. The laughter they heard before escalated into a menacing chorus, simultaneously mocking and terrifying. What was out there? It was more than they had imagined. There was a whole world beyond the wood. The group backed towards the fireplace, the collective sense of dread tightening around them like a noose. They had been wrong about the night. They had never been simply running from shadows. This was a pact invoked, and the forest would not let them go easily. Do you hear that? Tom's eyes were wide with realization. It wasn't just one entity. It seemed like many, dozens swirling behind that door. They couldn't stay. Not here. But how would they escape the grasp of whatever voice and visage awaited them outside? With pounding hearts and an uncertainty that felt tangible, they faced the door. Would they burst forth into the unknown and run into the very heart of the nightmare they tried to flee? Or would they remain shackled, prisoners to whatever had been unleashed? The moment to decide was fast approaching. With every tick of the clock, the shadows grew closer, and with it, a promise that something wicked was waiting. Would they be brave enough to confront it, or would they succumb to the suffocating dread? And who knew what fury awaited them beyond the threshold? The room fell silent, a thick blanket of tension suffocating them. Each tick of the old clock on the wall echoed like thunder in Clara's ears. Her breath came in short, shaky gasps, and she could feel the weight of her friend's fear pressing against her. Maybe it'll just go away. Tom's voice trembled, as if he clung to some last breath of hope. No, don't you get it? Clara nearly yelled, willing them to see. If it's out there, it knows we're in here. It will not leave us alone. Hank's face blanched, his bravado completely stripped away. What do? We can't just sit here. That voice, it sounded like it was calling for us. Clara whispered, her thoughts racing. What did it want? What had they unwittingly become a part of? Before she could finish her thought, another relentless barrage pounded against the door. The thuds now transformed into a chorus of shrieks, guttural and inhuman. Clara recoiled, instinctively raising her crude weapon in defense. Get away from the windows, she shouted, pushing her friends back. They stumbled, tripping over furniture in their scramble for safety. Shadows danced wildly around them, the flickering candlelight barely piercing the growing darkness in the corners of the cabin. We need to board up the windows, to lock everything, Hank said, urgency breaking through his earlier bravado. If it's a creature, but what if it's worse? The doubt hung heavy between them, thick as fog. Something is out there, Clara exclaimed. But it doesn't want to just scare us, it's taunting us. It knows we're trapped. A chilling wind whipped through the cracks in the logs, and a stench of decay wafted inside, wrapping around them with a ghostly chill. Tom gagged, his hand clapping over his mouth. What is that? Clara's mind raced, piecing together fragmented images. The man from earlier, the way he gazed at them. They had stirred something from the earth, something that had lain dormant in these haunted woods. No more waiting, she declared sharply, a sudden resolve surging within her. We can't let fear drive us. We have to confront it. What are you talking about? Hank shot back, panic etched in every line of his face. You want to go outside? Are you nuts? Yes. Clara's heart pounded against her ribs, but she felt the ferocity building, the need to break free from this prison of doubt. We've held ourselves captive for too long. If we're going to survive, we have to know what we're up against. We can't just hide. The growling outside intensified, blasting against the door like a storm. A moment later, something big slammed against the cabin's side, causing the structure to shudder. Wood creaked menacingly, a death knell for their hopes of safety. Just one step outside. It can't be worse than staying here, Clara convinced herself, pushing aside her growing dread. Hank and Tom exchanged glances, their hesitation palpable. Then they shifted slightly, reluctantly moving into position. The weight of their fear still loomed, but Clara could see flickers of determination igniting among them. All right, on three, Clara said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. 1, 2. A gaping crack erupted through the door as a mass of snarls burst with ferocity. The door swung open, propelled by the strength of whatever lay outside. Clara's heart plunged, but she didn't have time to panic. Now, she screamed. They charged towards the open door, adrenaline sharpening their senses. The world beyond was drenched in moonlight and shadow, distorted by the frantic beating of hearts. The figures around them twisted like phantoms, shapes emerging from the black corners of the forest. But something primal flickered in Clara's chest as they barreled toward the unknown. She realized that whatever they faced wasn't just a monster. It was the embodiment of their deepest fears. Would she find the strength to challenge it? Or would it consume everything they held dear? The leap into the night was irreversible. Clara's heart raced as the shadows melded into a chilling cacophony around them. Would they find salvation, or would the darkness swallow them whole? In that moment, she stumbled upon a terrifying truth sometimes. Confronting fear turns into a greater terror. What lay ahead remained shrouded in mystery, but they were too far gone to turn back now. What waited beyond the threshold of their fragile resolve? The darkness closed in fast, wrapping Clara and her friends like a heavy blanket. The chill in the air wasn't just from the wind. It felt alive, charged with anticipation. Every rustle in the underbrush seemed magnified, a chorus of whispers urging them back toward the safety of the cabin. But Clara pushed forward, shaking off the frigid grip of fear. "Stay close," she ordered, her voice barely above a whisper, each word trembling with the weight of the unknown. The moon cast a ghostly light over the forest floor, revealing twisted roots and looming shadows that danced menacingly around them. Tom stumbled beside her, breathless. "This is insane, Clara. What if there's really something out here?" His eyes darted nervously into the thick shadows, as if expecting a creature to leap from the dark any second. "We have to find out what it wants." Clara snapped back, her own resolve faltering slightly as unease settled deep in her gut. "Trust me. If we can face it, we can end this nightmare." Hank, trailing slightly but finally catching up, threw a nervous glance over his shoulder. "Did you hear that?" He stopped abruptly, eyes wide. In the stillness, an unmistakable sound echoed through the trees, a choked gasp, distorted and unnatural. Clara's heart raced. "It's calling us," she breathed, the realization chilling her further. They weren't just being hunted. They were being drawn in like moths to a flame. "What do we do?" Thomas' eyes were wild, his hands shaking. "We keep moving," Clara insisted. "We need to find the source of that sound. Maybe it can help us understand what's happening." A brief flicker of hope surged within her, a desperate belief that answers lay ahead, not behind. She took a step forward, then another, pushing into the darkness. Behind her, she felt the weight of her friend's hesitation but didn't turn back. She couldn't. Branches snapped like bones beneath their feet as they made their way deeper into the woods. The wind picked up, a low moaning sound accompanied by another echo of that haunting voice. Clara felt tears of frustration pricking her eyes. "This way." She turned sharply, following the sound, each step feeling heavier than the last. They stepped into a small clearing lit by slivers of pale moonlight filtering through the treetops. A sudden stillness wrapped around them, suffocating. In the center of the clearing stood an old stone altar, covered with strange symbols that glowed faintly under the moon. Clara felt a strange pull toward it, as if it had been waiting for them all along. "What is this place?" Hank breathed out, clenching Clara's arm tightly. "I don't know," she admitted, stepping forward, every instinct telling her to turn back. But curiosity clawed at her. Maybe it's some kind of shrine. Before she could analyze it further, the air thickened, and a dark figure materialized at the edge of the forest. A chill raced down her spine as she squinted into the shadows, half expecting something terrifying to leap out at her. What emerged instead was a creature unlike anything they had seen before, a gaunt figure with ashen skin, its eyes glowing like embers. It moved forward slowly, its breath a puff of mist, and as it turned its head, Clara felt its gaze bore right through her. "Help!" It rasped, voice slithering over her skin like cold steel. "Help us! Who are you?" Tom stuttered, stepping back. It lifted a skeletal finger, pointing toward the altar. "To end the nightmare, you must face your fears." "Is this a joke?" Hank yelled, panic creeping back into his voice. "What does that even mean?" "Face it," the creature wailed, agony etched in every feature. or join us forever. Clara could barely breathe as the air thickened, fear gripping her heart. She looked at her friends, their eyes wide with confusion and terror. What do we do? The ground beneath their feet trembled slightly, and the night air warped with thick shadows, inching closer, threatening to pull them into the dark void. In that breathless moment, they stood at a crossroads of survival. Confronting their fears here, now, felt more daunting than she ever imagined. What will it take? She whispered, her voice trembling but determined, begging for clarification. Everything, the creature hissed, its eyes burning brighter. You will need to surrender what you hold most dear. As the shadows converged around them, Clara realized they had reached a point of no return. The question echoed in her mind louder than the dark whispers around them. Would they be able to sacrifice everything to find the truth? As the echo of the altar's power reached its peak, the shadows loomed closer, ready to pull them into the depths of their own darkness. What truly lay behind the curtain of their fears? Could they ever return if they crossed that line? Clara's heart felt like a drum pounding against her chest as the creature's words echoed in her mind. Everything. The air around them thickened with dread, and she could see the shadows weaving tighter, eager to claim them. Turning to her friends, she saw fear etched in their faces, a reflection of her own terror. We don't have a choice, she said, her voice trembling but resolute. If we don't confront whatever this is, we will be trapped here. What if facing our fears only makes it worse? Tom whispered, eyes wide, his breath hitching in his throat. We'll never know, Hank interjected, his voice shaking but firm. But we might not survive if we don't try. The creature swayed slightly, its gaze unyielding. Time is fleeting. The shadows are hungry. With those words pressing down on them, Clara steeled herself. The altar seemed to pulse with energy, beckoning her closer, and the symbols carved into its ancient stone twinkled under the moonlight, as if alive. What do we have to lose? She murmured, and with that, she stepped forward, defiance igniting within her. Clara, wait, Tom exclaimed, grabbing her arm. But she shook him off, determination coursing through her. She reached out, fingertips grazing the cold stone. A surge of warmth rushed through her, and she was flooded with visions, faces from her past, memories she'd buried beneath layers of fear and doubt. Face your fears, the creature's voice dripped like honeyed poison. Images fluttered in her mind, a little girl with braids, teetering on a swing. Her mother, eyes filled with worry, as she pushed harder with each giggle. Clara's childhood felt like a million lifetimes ago, but it was buried under the weight of her insecurities. She had long since traded laughter for worry, joy for responsibility. Clara swallowed hard, the lump in her throat growing. What if that was it? What if the key to facing her fears was accepting what she had lost? Suddenly, Hank gasped, staggering back as if struck. I see it. Oh God, I see it. What? Tom asked, panic rising in his chest. They want us to confront ourselves. Hank shouted, his voice shaking. The things we run from. In that moment of revelation, the air buzzed around Clara, almost electric. She had to confront the guilt she felt for not being there for her family, for not living up to their expectations. Each moment she allowed fear to dictate her choices came rushing to the surface, demanding to be acknowledged. We all have something we buried, she declared, her voice rising with strength. Let us not let the shadows win. Do you really think it's that simple? Tom shouted, his resolve cracking. What will we have to give up? Will our fears take the forms of our nightmares? I don't know, Clara cried, frustration boiling to the surface. But whatever it is, we have to face it together. With a deep breath, they huddled closer, an unspoken bond forming amongst them. The creature watched silently, the shadows swirling ever closer. Clara could feel the weight of her fears pressing on her shoulders, but with her friends beside her, she felt a simmering hope. Let us do this, Hank shouted, gripping Clara and Thomas' hands tightly as they stood gathered around the altar. The shadows shifted, morphing into images reflecting their deepest fears, their faces flickering like a dying flame. Clara took a step forward into the pulsating darkness, her heart racing. Whatever it is we face, we do it together. The shadows lunged, and with them came a cacophony of whispers, echoing their insecurities and regrets, each voice sharper than glass. Clara braced herself, squeezing her eyes shut against the bite of truth as the darkness reached for her. But just as it closed in, a blinding light erupted from the altar, tearing the shadows apart. Her fears could no longer hold them captive. It was now or never. Face it, she shouted into the void, feeling her resolve strengthen. The screams of her past roared back, threatening to swallow her whole. But Clara opened her eyes, staring into the heart of the light. A glimpse of hope surged within her. What's happening? Tom cried out, struggling against the weight of their combined shadows. Believe, Clara yelled, forcing her voice above the noise. But as the light continued to engulf them, she felt the essence of something vital flickering at the edges. Would the light last long enough to free them from the clutches of darkness? As Clara locked eyes with the creature, an unsettling truth dawned on her. What do we really have to give up to emerge from the shadows? And with that thought, the altar trembled violently, shifting the earth beneath their feet. Would the price of their fears lead to salvation, or would they be lost forever in the wild? The ground trembled like a living entity, and the light from the altar pulsed with an intensity that matched Clara's racing heartbeat. The shadows around them twisted and screamed, their intangible forms clawing at the edges of the light, desperate to reclaim their hold. Hold on, Clara shouted. She tightened her grip on Hank and Tom, their fingers interlinked like a lifeline in the storm. The brightness surged, illuminating the faces of her friends, a mix of terror and resolve reflected in their eyes. Do you see it? Hank gasped. It's breaking. The shadows can't endure the light. Each flicker of illumination seemed to cast shadows of their own dark recollections flared to life around them. Vivid memories entwined with their fears, like specters reliving their worst moments. When Clara's gaze flickered, she could see herself losing her childhood laughter, strained conversations with her family, moments of doubt where she hesitated, always hesitating. Breathe, Tom yelled, his voice cutting through the chaos. We can't let it overwhelm us. But the whispering fear pressed in harder. It was morphing, corrupting, drawing out the worst. Clara could feel the choke of sadness clasping around her throat, squeezing the hope from her heart. What if we can't escape this? She murmured, her strength wavering. Together, Hank's shout pierced her doubt. We confront this darkness together. She took a deep breath, fueled by both fear and courage, ready to charge forward into the vortex of their fears. The wisps of shadow began to coalesce, forming grotesque figures crafted from each of their insecurities. Tom was facing himself, an old image of failure, an echo of past mistakes creeping up with a dark, sneering grin. No, I'm not you, he roared, but even as he fought, Clara could see the doubt creeping into his eyes. Hank's shadows loomed behind him, a horde of missed chances, opportunities crushed by the weight of others' expectations. This isn't real, he shouted, his own scream swallowed by the other voices. Clara looked at her friends, their faces pale with strain. Could she be strong enough? All at once, an overwhelming resolve swelled within her. If they were to conquer this together, they each needed to challenge what those shadows represented. Listen to me, Clara called, her voice strong against the cacophony. These shadows don't define us. They are our past, but we're not chained by our fears anymore. With her voice as a beacon, she rallied against the old visions haunting their minds. She took a step further into the pulsating light, drawing Tom and Hank along with her. We face the truth, the hurt, the mistakes, but we're together now, and that's stronger than any fear. I'm facing that I don't need to be perfect, Hank shouted, pushing back the grotesque, morphing face of his past with fierce defiance. I'm battling the lie that I failed, Tom yelled, breaking free from the shadow that taunted him, their cruel smile melting into the light. Clara could feel an energy pulse through her, a fire of unity igniting within. Shadows screeched around them, raking through their skin, clawing for their insecurities. But with every proclamation of self-acceptance, every declaration of love and forgiveness, the shadows flickered, losing their grip. Suddenly, the altar surged with blinding light. Feel the light. Accept your truths. Clara screamed, her words echoing through the storm. And just as she felt hope surging, the ground beneath them roared, collapsing in on itself. The moment of light cracked, a fissure breaking apart their world as the creature's piercing gaze bore through the fading shadows. Will you embrace your truths, or remain shrouded in darkness? The earth trembled more violently now. Clara's heart raced. Was the light truly enough to vanquish the darkness? Or would their acceptance come at a dreadful price? In those fleeting seconds, Clara realized they were running out of time, but the truth was close. With eyes wide and breath held, she questioned, what's on the other side of this? Will we truly become whole? Or lose ourselves completely? The altar erupted, and Clara braced herself for the unknown as the shadows howled one last time, threatening to pull them back. The blinding light enveloped them, and Clara felt the surge like rushing water pulling her into a vortex. She locked eyes with Hank and Tom, their faces twisted in fear and determination. Just as she thought they were being yanked apart, an invisible force brought them back together, the warmth of their unity igniting a fire against the encroaching darkness. Fight it! Clara screamed, feeling their fingers intertwine tighter. They were vulnerable, their fears naked before the shadows that howled with desperation. But she wouldn't let go. Not now. They needed more than just courage. They needed faith in each other. The altar's light radiated brighter, shimmering with every heartbeat, but the cracks in the ground widened. Clara could see dark tendrils creeping from below, snaking toward them like hungry serpents. It's not enough, she gasped, panic rising in her throat. We can do this, Tom shouted, and she admired the way he fought through the shadows that draped over him. Remember what we said. We're stronger together. But the whispers from the shadows twisted their words. Together? You might be together now, but you're still haunted. Look at yourselves. They displayed twisted reflections of Clara's childhood fears, frosty echoes of loneliness and rejection. They morphed into each person's deepest insecurities, hops of despair dancing tantalizingly at the edges of their minds. Focus, Clara cried, shaking off the cold grip of doubt. These shadows are nothing but echoes. We can break free. She could feel the warmth of the light growing stronger as they all chanted a mantra, declaring their truths in unison, sending shockwaves through the dark chaos around them. I'm not my past. I wholeheartedly accept myself. I am worthy of love. I will not fear failure. Tom echoed, fierceness growing in his voice like a fire igniting. I can't be perfect, but I can be free. Hank added, his voice slicing through the noise like a blade. With each truth spoken, the shadows shrieked, writhing back like snakes underfoot. The fissures in the ground began to pulsate, the light from the altar shining through them, illuminating their path forward. Clara felt the ground tremble in a more violent response, the weight shifting as though the very earth grappled with their resolve. Then came a sound that froze her heart. The creature's booming voice rang out, echoing through the chaos. You think you've mastered acceptance? Embrace your truths? Or feel the full power of your darkness? A new wave of fear flooded them, attempting to drown out their shared declarations. The shadows began coiling around their legs, dragging them toward the darkness. Clara fought against it, her body straining against the weight of despair. Look at me, she shouted to her friends, forcing eye contact, her voice snapping through the haze of fear. We cannot let go. We have the light. We have each other. As they focused again, the altar blazed in response. They were coalescing the light, harnessing it into an unstoppable force. The shadows recoiled in horror, shrieks contorting the air. You will not escape. Clara felt a tremor through the ground, fierce and unrelenting. The altar cracked with an energy that pulsed wildly, a last throw of the endgame. Together, she yelled, channeling every ounce of strength, every ounce of faith into that single word. Together, and with that, a blinding burst erupted from the altar, enveloping everything in a white light so bright it was burning. and yet, comforting. But as that brilliant pulse struck their hearts, the ground beneath them suddenly began to fade, a portal swirling beneath them, threatening to swallow them whole. Clara's breath lodged in her throat. They were teetering on the brink of the unknown. What lay within the light? Was it salvation or doom? She thought of the truths they declared. Would they empower them or destroy everything they fought for? Are we ready for this? Tom's voice trembled as the edges of the light warped and twisted around them, the moment stretching thin, almost unbearable. Clara's heart raced, adrenaline surging through her veins like wildfire. They were on the edge, but the decision had to come now. Leap into the unknown, or remain behind to succumb to the shadows. The portal gaped open, a swirling abyss of shimmering light and dark illusion. Just as it began to pull them in, Clara's resolve hardened. She grasped Hank and Tom even tighter, feeling their strength blend into hers, a chaotic rhythm of hope against despair. Together, she shouted, ready to dive into whatever awaited them. But the true question loomed larger than life. Would they find freedom or forever dwell in the echoes of their past? In that moment of reckoning, Clara felt a rush of thrill and a terror that both paralyzed and propelled her forward. Heart pounding fiercely against her chest, she squeezed her friend's hands, forging an unbreakable bond with shared adrenaline and fear. The portal crackled around them, swirling with light and shadow, an electric promise that whispered of truths yet unfaced. Now, Clara commanded, her voice steady as steel, as if she held the very essence of courage within her. With one final glance at Hank and Tom, she took the plunge, pulling them into the spiraling abyss of both light and dark. They fell, weaving through currents of shimmering brilliance, each moment stretching like an elastic band ready to snap. Memories cascaded around them, the soft laughter of childhood, the sting of regret, the fear that wove itself into the fabric of their lives. But as they fell deeper, a profound stillness wrapped around Clara, anchoring her. The cacophony of shadows dimmed, and she pressed forward, fueled by her deepest desire for freedom. And then, crashing against the ground like a wave breaking on the shore, they landed in a field suffused with golden light. The landscape was surreal, lush green stretched for miles under an azure sky. Fragrant flowers blinking in hues of lavender and cerulean. Felt like home. Felt like a celebration, a new beginning. Clara took a breath, filling her lungs with the sweet scent of possibility, and glanced at her friends. Hank and Tom stood wide-eyed, soaking it all in a palpable change mirrored on their faces. We did it? Tom whispered, disbelief threading through his voice. Together, Clara responded, tears of relief glistening on her cheeks. They embraced, washing away the fear and darkness that had clung to them just moments before. It was a bubble of warmth, unlike anything they had known, and for just a moment, they felt invincible. But just as the light seeped into their bones, shadows from the past tried to cling to the edges of their happiness, memories looming in the twilight, ready to pull them back. We need to reclaim our truths, Clara breathed, the echo of the creature's haunting reminder still fresh in her mind. They turned to face the shadows that began to swirl at the edge of the field, taut with hesitation. What do we do now? Hank asked, fumbling for confidence amid the rising eeriness. Remember what we faced, Clara urged, grounding them in the raw strength that had brought them here. We need to embrace everything light, dark, past, present. We are not our fears. We are so much more. As if responding to her words, the shadows twitched uncertainly, wavering like smoke, unable to withstand the light of acceptance blossoming within Clara and her friends. You cannot hide from us, hissed a voice from the depths, as the shadows thickened at their feet. I'm not hiding, Clara replied, standing firm. I refuse to be defined by you. The ground rumbled slightly, as if acknowledging her defiance. Tom and Hank stepped forward, their resolve ignited. I'm not afraid of failure, Tom shouted, his voice rising triumphantly. I will embrace every part of myself. Hank added, conviction infusing his posture. United, they chanted their truths, their voices blending into a harmonious echo against the encroaching darkness. We accept ourselves. We are whole. Together, The shadows trembled as their declarations gathered steam, pushing back against the darkness that crackled around it. Blinding bursts of light erupted from within them, illuminating everything in its warmth, shattering the grip of fear's influence. The shadows shrank away, wailing in protest before fizzing into oblivion, leaving only sparkling remnants of what once haunted them. And in that sacred space, a profound realization washed over Clara. Each step they took on the pathway of acceptance led them closer to healing. They had battled their fears and emerged unscathed, finally free of the chains binding them to the darkness of their past. As they stood, the landscape shifted before them, morphing into a path leading toward and inviting, horizons stretching beyond imagination. "Come on, let us see where it leads," Clara urged, her spirit a spark of excitement in the AI art. In that moment, they understood. It wasn't just about facing fears. It was about living in the light, choosing love over loss, courage over cowardice. Together, they navigated the gentle hills and valleys, stepping into hope, a shared essence binding them on a journey of rediscovery. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over their newfound home, the laughter bubbled up, bright and unfettered, soaring through the air. The mountain men's secrets had awakened something deep within them, a call to remain vigilant, to honor the energy of the wild and the past, but to always choose the light. They didn't just survive the wilderness. They thrived in it. It was more than an adventure. It was a profound transformation, and beyond the canvas of the setting sun, new stories waited, shimmering on the edges of reality, beckoning them to continue the journey. Before you part ways, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss all of our exclusive stories that will keep your heart racing. Smash that like button now. Let's feed the algorithm and keep this community thriving together. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion. We want to know your thoughts. Your input means the world to us. And remember, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering finale. Let's spread the light.